The wind whistled through the barren trees, carrying with it the mournful cries of the past. I can still vividly remember the day my family moved into that foreboding mansion in the remote town of Ravenswood. The dilapidated structure had an eerie presence, but my parents, driven by the allure of a bargain, ignored the ominous warnings from the locals. It was the summer of 1993 when we arrived in Ravenswood. The town was nestled deep in the woods, far away from the hustle and bustle of civilization. We were an ordinary family of four: my parents, my younger sister Emma, and myself, Mark. We were drawn to the house by its unbelievably low price. My father, always the pragmatic one, saw it as an opportunity for a fresh start, away from the noise of the city. The mansion, they told us, had once belonged to the Wainwrights, a seemingly ordinary family of five, but their lives had been anything but ordinary. The story went that one fateful night, about 10 years before we arrived, the entire Wainwright family had been brutally murdered in their sleep, along with their neighbors, the Hendersons, who lived next door. The details of the gruesome crime had never been fully disclosed, but the townsfolk believed it was the work of a deranged outsider. The incident had left the town traumatized, and the house had remained vacant ever since. They claimed the spirits of the victims still wandered the halls, their anguished cries echoing in the night. My parents laughed off these superstitions, dismissing them as mere folklore. They believed in science, not ghosts. Little did they know, they were walking into a nightmare. The mansion was as creepy on the inside as it was on the outside. It had high ceilings, creaking floorboards, and an aura of perpetual darkness that no amount of sunlight could dispel. The air was thick with an unnatural chill, even in the sweltering summer heat. Strange things began happening almost immediately. At night, Emma would wake up screaming, claiming she'd seen shadowy figures at the foot of her bed. My parents chalked it up to nightmares, but I knew she wasn't imagining things. I'd heard whispers in the hallway, and footsteps in empty rooms. At times, it felt as if the house itself was breathing, its walls pulsating with an eerie life of their own. One evening, as I ventured into the attic, I stumbled upon a dusty old diary hidden beneath a pile of decaying books. It belonged to Amelia Wainwright, the youngest daughter of the ill-fated family. The diary chronicled her growing terror in the days leading up to the massacre. She spoke of ghostly apparitions, moving furniture, and voices in the dark that tormented her. The more I read, the more convinced I became that the spirits of the Wainwrights and the Hendersons still lingered in the house. They were trapped, their souls bound by the horrors of that night, unable to find peace. I shared my discovery with Emma, and together, we began investigating the sinister history of the mansion. Late one night, as we delved deeper into our research, we heard the faintest of cries coming from behind a hidden wall in the basement. With trembling hands, we managed to pry loose a loose brick and revealed a hidden chamber. Inside, we found the remains of a makeshift seance, complete with candles, incantations, and an old, tattered Ouija board. As we uncovered the chilling ritual, the temperature in the room plummeted, and the air grew heavy with dread. The spirits, it seemed, had been summoned by some dark force, and we had unwittingly unleashed their fury. The hauntings grew worse. We were tormented by vengeful apparitions, their hollow eyes fixed on us with hatred. Objects moved on their own, and the walls seemed to bleed with memories of that dreadful night. We were trapped in a nightmare with no escape. My parents, finally acknowledging the malevolent presence in the house, decided it was time to leave. But the spirits had other plans. On the night we packed our belongings, the mansion came alive with a cacophony of horrors. The walls screamed, the floors shook, and the spirits of the Wainwrights and the Hendersons rose from their restless slumber. We fled the house, our hearts pounding, and our sanity hanging by a thread. As we left Ravenswood behind, we could still hear their anguished wails echoing in the distance. The mansion, forever cursed, would remain empty, a chilling reminder of the horrors that had transpired within its walls. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that the spirits of the Wainwrights and the Hendersons are still out there, waiting for the next unsuspecting family to move into that forsaken mansion. And as long as that house stands, their torment will never end, and their malevolent presence will continue to haunt the remote town of Ravenswood. The year was 1988, and my family had decided to leave behind the hustle and bustle of city life for the tranquility of a remote town named Blackwood. It was a picturesque, albeit forgotten, place nestled deep within the embrace of an ancient forest. My parents, driven by dreams of a quieter life and an irresistible bargain, had purchased a mansion at an unbelievably low price. Blackwood had its secrets, like any small town. But there was one story that cast a long, dark shadow over the entire community. A decade prior, a man named Leonard Matthews, plagued by a severe mental illness, had gone on a murderous rampage. He had started by brutally slaughtering his own family of 5 before turning his wrath on the Hendersons, the neighbors who lived just next door. The tale was as gruesome as it was tragic. Leonard had reportedly believed that his family and the Hendersons were conspiring against him, their whispers and imagined plots tormenting his fragile mind until he could bear it no longer. One fateful night, he had snapped, leaving a trail of blood and horror in his wake. When the authorities finally arrived, they found him, covered in blood, standing among the lifeless bodies of his victims. Leonard Matthews was committed to a mental institution, never to see the light of day again. The town was left scarred by the tragedy, and the mansion where the murders had taken place stood vacant, a chilling reminder of the horrors that had unfolded within. My parents, being the pragmatic souls they were, paid little heed to the rumors that the mansion was cursed. They believed that Leonard's madness had no bearing on the property itself. It was just a house, they reasoned, and we would make it our home. The mansion was a grand, yet eerie, structure. Its time-worn walls seemed to absorb the natural light, casting long, dark shadows in every corner. The air inside was perpetually cold, no matter how bright the sun shone outside. Strange occurrences began almost immediately. At night, I would hear faint whispers in the corridors, as if someone was desperately trying to communicate from beyond the grave. Objects moved of their own accord, and chilling drafts swept through the hallways, carrying with them the scent of death and decay. I often awoke to find my younger sister, Sarah, trembling with fear, her eyes wide and staring into the darkness. One day, while exploring the attic, I stumbled upon a box of old newspapers dating back to the time of the murders. The headlines screamed of Leonard Matthews' gruesome acts, and the accompanying photographs sent shivers down my spine. But it was a journal, hidden beneath the newspapers, that would reveal the mansion's darkest secrets. The journal belonged to Melissa Henderson, the youngest member of the family brutally murdered by Leonard. She had chronicled the strange occurrences leading up to that fateful night. Melissa spoke of ghostly apparitions, of hearing her parents and siblings whispering in the night, even though they were not there. She wrote of an overwhelming sense of dread that had permeated every corner of the house. It became clear that the mansion itself was a malevolent entity. It had absorbed the terror and anguish of that night, becoming a vessel for the tortured souls of those who had perished within its walls. We had unknowingly moved into a house haunted not only by the spirit of Leonard Matthews, but also by the ghosts of the innocent Henderson family. As the weeks passed, the hauntings grew more intense. We were tormented by apparitions of the murdered family, their faces twisted in agony. They whispered in the night, their voices pleading for release from their eternal torment. Sarah's once lively spirit withered, and my parents were at a loss as to how to protect us. One fateful night, as we huddled together in terror, a powerful gust of wind burst through the windows, extinguishing the candles and plunging the mansion into darkness. In that moment, we heard the agonized wails of the spirits, louder and more anguished than ever before. It was as if they were reliving their final moments over and over again. That night, my parents made the decision to leave Blackwood and the cursed mansion behind. As we fled the town, I glanced back at the mansion, shrouded in darkness and despair. The spirits of Leonard Matthews and the Henderson family were trapped within those walls, condemned to an eternity of suffering. As we left Blackwood, I couldn't help but wonder if another unsuspecting family would be drawn to the mansion's inexplicably low price, ignorant of the horrors that lay within. The town remained quiet and empty, its secrets buried in the forest, waiting for the next unfortunate souls to unlock the door to their own personal nightmare.